Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, ELENOA McCabe. I'm an IFBB Bikini Pro and an online fitness coach. And today we are celebrating our 100th episode. Woo! If I had a soundboard, I would put some of the crowd cheering in there. I thought that it would only be fitting to go through the most valuable lessons that I have learned from 100 episodes of podcasting. So first, I do want to thank each and every one of you who tune in every single Wednesday. You guys know Wednesdays are for Becoming Relentless, but I am so grateful for the support, the messages, and the ability to be able to help you guys each become relentless in your own lives, no matter what the goal is. We are going to go ahead. We are going to dive right in today. So the number one lesson that I have learned is that keeping your word is one of the most important things that you can do. When you tell yourself or other people that you're going to do something, your character is reflected whether or not you follow through on that thing. Far too often, I have seen and experienced lack of good character based off of whether someone actually does what they say. It's extremely easy to front on social media, but what really matters at the end of the day is who you are. Something that has completely changed my life is keeping the promises that I make to myself. A long time ago, I told myself that a goal was to step on the Olympia stage. Since then, I have kept that promise to myself by showing up day after day. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But when I say that I'm going to do something, I will stop at nothing to follow through. I've definitely expressed this sentiment before, and a common question that I get back a lot of the time is, well, what if you change your mind? And that is a great question. It's important to understand that you are not your thoughts or feelings. It's okay to change your mind, to grow, to evolve, and to walk another path. However, the origin on that change, I believe, must also be examined. I think a good example here could even be the changes in fitness as a whole that we're seeing. For example, we're seeing a lot more run clubs. We're seeing a lot less of the strong is the new skinny, and a lot more people are actually trying to be skinny. Now, going back to run clubs, those are easily one of the most popular things to do these days, especially as like a young 20, 30 something. And instead of dating and like going on dates, I believe run clubs are kind of like the new dating clubs because it's something consistent that you can do week to week. You get to meet new people. You also get to hang out with the same people once or twice a week, and you're doing something active. You're bettering yourself, and that is also inherently attractive. I feel like with this return of trends that's moving away from strong is the new skinny, like get as strong as you can, go to the gym, lift all these weights. And now we're shifting more towards the run clubs, hybrid training, being more athletic, more functional. We're seeing a lot of that shift. And I don't think that any of this is good or bad. Like I prefer to not label things as a good or a bad thing, but it is something to take note of because all of these shifts can influence your decisions and your goals. If you're a bodybuilder and everyone around you is suddenly running, or they're hybrid athletes, or they're walking away from bodybuilding, it makes sense that you might also start to question whether or not you should do the same. At our cores as human beings, we love community. We want to be part of a community. We want to fit in. And so it can be kind of challenging when the people around you are moving outside of what you previously all loved to do. So in my own life, like these examples that I'm using, like I can be very specific on, but in my own life, like I have even had these moments where I'm like, do I want to bodybuild anymore? Like, do I love bodybuilding? Do I want to build muscle and be strong? Or do I want to try something different? I tried mat Pilates, hot mat Pilates a couple weeks ago, and I absolutely loved it. it was so fun. It was something different than I'd ever done before. Like the challenge of it, I really liked. And I also felt that sense of community within the group fitness class, like within the Pilates class. So I've definitely been there as well, where I'm like, well, should I be joining Pilates? Should I walk away from bodybuilding? But what always brings me back to center is that I made a promise to myself, that I said I was going to bodybuild until I stepped foot on the Olympia stage, and then I could retire and be happy. I might step on the Olympia stage and get fired up and have my dreams fueled even further and keep going and keep going and keep going. I have no idea until that time comes, but I think that it would be a mistake for me to walk away from bodybuilding just to join and almost take part in what other people are also doing. And like I said, I don't think this is a bad thing or a good thing. Like it simply is what it is. And I do believe some people ran their course with bodybuilding. Their goal was to go pro, or their goal was to step on stage or become a better version of themselves. And they did that. They accomplished that. And so they are happy to walk away from competing and do something different. For me, I'm not there yet. If you have big goals and you want to be exceptional at something, then that means that you have to become the exception. And that also means that you will be different. You can't just conform to trends because other people are. So the main difference that I see when people are like, well, what if you change your mind? The difference is whether you truly want to pursue something because it sets your heart and your soul on fire and you feel so pulled to it and you're so passionate about it, versus experiencing some self-doubt and looking for an easier way or an easier thing to do to fit in with. I don't want to get too far off track here, but one of the greatest lessons that I have learned to date is how important it is to keep your word. Keep your word to yourself, to others, and watch how much greater you become. When your promises to yourself are not only you building your self-confidence, building that discipline, you're also building dependability. So you become a leader for other people. You'll be so unshakable in your pursuit and the confidence gained that just literally comes from keeping your word to yourself. So if I had one lesson to depart, it would be keep the promises that you make to yourself every single day. You said you would get up and exercise. Okay, do it. You said that you would meal prep and stop eating out this week. Do it. You said that you would stop mindlessly scrolling through social media. Okay, bet. Delete Instagram off your phone. Nobody cares, I promise. You won't miss out on anything, and I can guarantee that. But what you will gain is a sense of unshakable self-confidence and the discipline to keep pursuing your goals. Okay, lesson number 2 that I have learned through podcasting is when you suck at something, you just have to keep going. When I started this podcast, I had 2 other co-hosts, and I had never been a public speaker before. I didn't have to think about articulating myself as clearly. I didn't have to think about thinking fast and speaking fast or filler words. Now that I am solo podcasting, I can look back and see just how much growth I have experienced, even just in the podcast alone. But some other areas are my public speaking skills, my abilities to articulate my thoughts and be more descriptive and not just use brain rot. Because if you're my friend, you know I probably say slay 10,000 times a day, but I haven't said it on this podcast until just now. I joined a club last year in Austin, Texas called Toastmasters, and there's actually Toastmasters clubs all around. So if you live in a bigger city, you most likely have 2 or 3 Toastmasters clubs that are available to you. And it's a club where you go and you learn how to public speak. So you practice public speaking. It's a room full of strangers. Everybody gets up there. There's a prompt. Sometimes it's like thinking on your feet. You get the prompt supplied to you and then you go up there and you give a speech. Sometimes you have a prepared speech that you're going to give with like time constraints. But all of that is to say, I knew when I first started this podcast and I had my other co-host, I knew that I wasn't happy with my public speaking skills. Like going on camera still made me nervous. Speaking in front of people still made me incredibly nervous. And I was like, okay, I need to practice, get better. Even though I don't want to, I really don't want to, because I know that I suck at it. I have to do it. I have to try. I was so determined to learn not only how to better articulate my thoughts, but also how to be confident in front of other people, in front of a camera. And so that's why I went all in with it. And when you first start something, you're guaranteed to not be good at it. It doesn't matter whether it's podcasting, working out, training, drawing, dancing, writing, reading. It literally doesn't matter what it is. You are going to suck. You are not going to be good at it, and you're going to get easily frustrated. You might be one of those rare people who can pick up a new skill or like a new hobby easily, but then you likely get bored with it and you never truly master it. So I easily could have in my journey with podcasting or even within bodybuilding said, okay, yeah, like I'm good enough. I went pro. I can stop. I'm a pro bodybuilder. Goal achieved, walk away. But I knew, okay, now that I'm a pro, I suck. I'm the worst pro in the league, just based off of my standings, based off of my record. I'm a brand new IFBB pro, never competed on the pro stage before. I'm probably the worst. And I'm not saying that in like a self-deprecating way. I'm just saying that in a realistic manner, because that's truly how you have to think. When you're starting something new, when you're doing something new, you're not going to be good at it. Like, who am I to say, yeah, I turned pro, I'm going to go straight to the Olympia? That would be a little bit unrealistic, a little delusional, a little cocky. And of course, that's always the dream, but that's not something that I wanted to just go all in with and not recognize that, like, hey, I'm not going to be good, and that's okay, because I can practice and do things to get better. I can keep hitting my protocol. I can keep hitting my posing. I can stick to my diet and do all the things that are being asked of me, so that when it is time for me to get on stage and perform and do my thing, I'll suck a little bit less at it. I know in our culture these days, it's valuable to be seen as like a jack of all trades. Like, it's cool if you know how to do everything and you can do all these things. But if you truly want to be great at something, you have to work at it. And you have to accept that it's really going to take time, patience, and dedication to get where you want to go with it. You will make mistakes. You will get frustrated. But what's key is that you just keep showing up. You keep moving forward. You keep practicing and learning and trying and failing, and you just keep going. As I've continued my podcasting journey, I've become so much more aware of the filler words that I use, of the brain rot slang from TikTok that has really infiltrated my vocabulary. I've been able to organize my thoughts and express them in a much more rich and colorful way. Even as I get deeper into prep, and at the time of this episode being released, I will be 11 and a half weeks out. Woohoo! But I've still realized that my ability to communicate my vocabulary has stayed just as strong. And a large part of that, I think, is thanks to this podcast. I basically have an hour every single week where I can come in and talk to myself out loud. It's a win-win for us both. I get to improve at a skill that's important to me, and you guys get a peek into my brain, and hopefully you get some education or inspiration or motivation, something out of this podcast. But if you are listening to this and you've had the pull to want to work on a new skill, start something new, this is your sign. Schedule some time in your week to slowly start working at this skill. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to go, an hour a day of this new thing. Just commit to a little bit of time per week. And I promise, once you get going, once you get through that initial suck phase, just an incredible world of possibilities will open up. Lesson number 3, change is truly inevitable. This podcast has gone through so many changes, and so have I. As a result, I've been able to live through and experience both the wonders and the hardships of change. The only constant in our lives is change. And if you think about that a little too deeply, it gets scary. We cannot control the world around us and how things unfold, but what we can control, even those things will change. We can see this on both a micro and a macro level. So, for example, our thoughts, actions, beliefs, the words we use, our bodies, our minds, our energy, all of that can and will change. For example, with this podcast specifically, we have changed the cover art several times. We have changed different co-hosts. We've tried different subjects and topics outside of fitness as well as within. And there's also you as the listener. I'm sure from this first episode to now the 100th episode, the amount of changes that you have undergone in your life are so many. Every single day, we have the opportunity to change, and it's up to us whether we take that on or not. In the context of bodybuilding, we'll see our bodies change several times throughout the year, whether you're in a growth phase, a health phase, a cutting phase, even in a maintenance phase, your body is still going to change. For business, you will see your business change and grow and evolve as the consumer and the market evolves too. It's all inevitable. But like I said earlier, there's a difference between changing for superficial reasons and changing as you evolve as a person. From the start of this podcast to now, I am a much more confident person, but my goals have essentially remained the same. I still want to have success within my bodybuilding career, within my coaching business, and in so many different areas of my life. And it became so much easier to flow with life once I accepted that I can love my life now and know that it's going to change. When you grip too tightly onto not wanting things to change, wanting things to stay the same, that's when a lot of resistance can come up. And that's when we start to see self-sabotage. That's when we start to see people not sticking to their word, not following through on their goals, and essentially trying to beat the fact that change is inevitable. Change is going to happen. Lesson number 4. No one is going to do the work for you. This is something that I learned early on within podcasting. I knew I couldn't just show up to the studio to record without putting in work and effort. The easy route would be to accept mediocrity and to come in and just stream of consciousness flow, no plan at all. That would feel much easier than sitting down and writing an outline and picking a topic and doing a Q&A and gathering information. But then if I were to just stream of consciousness, it would be so much harder at the time of recording. When I actually sit down and do some of the preemptive work, when I pick a topic, when I write an outline, when I spend time thinking really hard about what it is exactly that I want to convey, what's the message, what do I want to say here? That is a lot easier when I then sit down to record. We can see this in a lot of different areas of our lives. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to do the hard work for you. When you have a goal or a dream that you are trying to achieve, you are going to have to put in endless hours of consistent, boring work. A lot of the time, our brains will look for shortcuts. We hear that voice in the back of our heads whispering, "Hey, it's okay. You're doing so good. Let off the gas. Sleep in a little. Snooze your alarm again. You're fine." But if you let off the gas, don't be surprised when somebody else passes you up on the path to your goal. We all have dreams. Some of us right now listening have the exact same dreams. So if you want to reach the top, you have to be willing to go further, faster, and work harder than anybody else, because no one is going to do this work for you. To achieve a strong and healthy body, you can't skip movement and nutrition. This is super clear for our physical health, but it applies to our overall wellness as well. Many will overlook this connection. But to truly transform your life, you have to commit to daily practices and self-reflection. You need to show up for yourself every single day. You could have the most perfect plan in the world and it won't work unless you do. If I could offer some advice for this lesson, no one is coming to save you, but that doesn't mean that you have to walk all alone. Be open to seeking guidance, learning from your experiences, embracing the changes, and letting go of what doesn't serve you. Only you can walk your unique path, and only you can do this work. Lesson number 5. I have learned how absolutely powerful it is to actively listen. I also feel like that is a super rare trait these days. With social media and all of us having a phone addiction, it's harder and harder to truly be present and listen to another person. With podcasting, especially when I'm interviewing guests, I've learned how to lean into active listening. I've had to literally turn my brain off and stop focusing so much on, what am I going to say next? What should I say after? What should I ask them next? And I've truly just practiced being engaged with what others are thinking and saying. Obviously, with this solo podcasting, it is a little bit different, but I do have some guests coming for you guys very soon. Active listening is such a beautiful way that you can show that you care for somebody. Rather than just waiting for your turn to speak, active listening is a skill that translates into every facet of your life. You can improve your personal relationships with active listening. You can improve your professional relationships with active listening. You can create more genuine and authentic connections with other people through active listening. In order to active listen, I did take notes so that I could help y'all, but these are also notes to myself. Active listening requires focusing completely on the speaker, asking insightful follow-up questions to what they just said and what you're truly wondering, picking up on their nonverbal cues, so things like body language, things like their facial expressions, whether they are looking at you for a response or not, and then also summarizing and reflecting on what has been said. Those are all great skills to start practicing so that you can be a really good active listener. Active listening has absolutely led me to having deeper understanding, empathy, and more meaningful connections with my athletes, my clients, my personal relationships, my friends, my family. So if there is ever a time where you're wondering, should I say anything? Instead of letting that little voice in your head dictate how you're going to respond to another person, try to clear your mind of all of those thoughts and just listen to them. Be truly engaged with what they're saying and give them that presence, because I think that's one of the best gifts that you can give to anyone is your presence, being fully there and actively listening to show that you care. Lesson number 6, continuous learning. And this is something that I think we've talked about before on the podcast, where even as a coach, like having continuous learning, always striving to learn more and be better and try different methods, whether it's something as small as peaking my athletes with higher fats versus carbs, whether it's teaching somebody how to do an RDL with a different sort of cue. All of these different things come from continuous learning. And I really feel as though podcasting has given me an opportunity to always be learning. It requires me to research diverse topics, to research experts from different fields before I interview them, and just constantly exposing myself to new ideas, new perspectives, being able to take in new information and process it on my own and then figure out a way to teach it to others. And so having this podcast has really pushed me to continue to learn, continue to be better, and really taught me how broadening my knowledge base, learning something new every time I sit down, it challenges my existing beliefs and assumptions, and it pushes me to have such a bigger open mind. I'm much more receptive to ideas that maybe previously I would not have been as open to learning about. And it's also allowed me to study new methods, new ways of doing things, to try and experiment with different things myself. And I feel like this podcast has really just helped to keep my mind really open to new concepts. I hope that it's also somewhat provided a learning source for you guys as well. Something that's pretty cool about continuous learning for this podcast, but also just in general, is that it's helped me also draw connections between like seemingly unrelated topics. So I might be speaking on the podcast about one thing, and then in my daily life, it shows up in another form. And that is just, to me, it's such a great example of synchronicity, but also how important it is to continue learning, to keep pushing to learn more, grow more, and evolve as a person. There's so much crossover between the discipline that you learn through bodybuilding and then the discipline that you learn through just going through life. Lesson number 7. The impact of sharing knowledge. So this kind of builds off the continuous learning one that we just touched on. But through podcast, I have realized the profound effect of sharing information and how that can affect others' lives. I've heard the most beautiful and inspiring stories that some of you listeners have trusted me and sent over to me. It's changed my life that I have been able to connect and cultivate new relationships and friendships and connections with most of y'all. By sharing our knowledge together, we can all help somebody solve a problem that they've been struggling with, inspire somebody else to keep striving, keep reaching, taking action towards their goals, or honestly just providing comfort and understanding to those who are going through similar experiences. Some of my favorite kinds of feedback have been from listeners who reach out and they let me know that some of the ideas that I speak on here were new ideas that changed their perspectives, or that this podcast was able to help them through a tough time. It's just really incredible how impactful Becoming Relentless has been, not only on my life, but also on y'all as the listeners too. And if I'm being like totally honest, this impact is incredibly motivating, and it gives me a sense of purpose, especially on the tougher days. Like, especially as I get deeper into prep, I just remember like everybody listening to this podcast right now, every amazing message, every shared story and shared human experience that I get to be part of. It really lights me up. It just inspires and motivates me to keep going and keep trying and keep living out my dreams as well. So everyone listening to this right now, I hope you know what an incredible part that you play in my journey. And I just could not be more grateful for you being here. And finally, lesson number 8. Podcasting has opened up a new level of embracing vulnerability for me. If you go back through our episodes from the beginning to now, I have to say I am so proud of how much I really have opened up, because I feel like this has become a safe space for me to be able to share my personal stories and insights. And at first it was really, really scary. I've always wanted to be open and vulnerable and show up as authentically as I can in every different facet of my life. And for the most part, I do feel like I achieved that. But at the beginning of Becoming Relentless, there were so many different masks that I had on. There were so many different personas that I was playing, different parts. And now that Becoming Relentless is my podcast, there is no hiding. There is no fronting, no pretending. There's no masks anymore. And what you see here is really what you get. I feel that this process of truly opening up and being vulnerable with you has led me to having greater self-awareness and self-acceptance. It's helped me process things that I've been through, and essentially get to learn from those experiences. And I feel so blessed to have the opportunity to be able to create stronger, more authentic connections with all of you guys. Like I said in the last point, I mean, the amount of messages and stories that I have gotten genuinely move me to tears. I'm so happy to be able to encourage others to be more open about their struggles and experiences as well, because this truly is a community and it's a shared human experience. And I am so proud. Not only have I been able to embrace the vulnerability and be open with you guys and take that mask off and just be Noa on this show, but I've also created a space here for other people to feel the same. And all of the interactions that I get from the podcast are so genuine and so impactful. All of the athletes that have reached out to me from the podcast and said that they felt drawn to work with me, our energies just vibe so well, and we mesh together so well because I think the community that we've created here is so special. So, with all of that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you for relentlessly tuning into this podcast, for sharing your experiences with me, and for being part of this amazing journey. In order to celebrate 100 episodes, I am offering a special extension on my current summer sale with coaching. If you're interested in working with me, I am taking on new athletes, general lifestyle clients, and contest prep competitors. Schedule a call with me using the link in the show notes below, and I can't wait to chat with you. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I hope that you learned just as much as I did in this episode, and I cannot wait for the next 100 episodes. If you enjoy this podcast, please give it a 5-star rating and review. Share it, like, subscribe, and please share it with a friend. That means the world to me. I'm so happy. We are at 100 freaking episodes. Happy 100, Becoming Relentless. And I look forward to another 100 episodes with you all. Until next time, stay relentless.